This is Hot Mic.
Hot Mic.
On the networks of WDAY.
WDAY.
Here's Dom Izzo.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour 2 on this Wednesday morning, ready to rock and roll. Tyler Oaks, North Dakota State Bison baseball coach, will join us coming up in about a half hour. Bison playing the Red Hawks here tonight. Little professional college showdown up at Newman Outdoor Field. Excited about that. I'm really pumped for our next guest to join us, and a story we've been following for I would say the better part of the last couple months. Became official on Monday about the Missouri Valley Football Conference and the Summit League entering into a partnership to enhance each of their leagues. There will be a new conference commissioner of the Missouri Valley Football League going forward. His name is Jeff Jackson, and he joins us this morning. Jeff has been the commissioner of the Missouri Valley Conference for the last 3.5 years. We know the difference on that. I was joking with you off air that how often have you run into that people don't know these are two separate entities?
Well, all the time, and we just made them all more confused, Don. And again, thank you for having me this morning. But yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun parsing the difference and getting people to understand that these are still two different and separate entities, but with the same goal, which is to make sure that we're providing the absolute best student-athlete experience that we can.
Tell me how this came together and why this was needed, in your opinion.
Well, the idea or the concept that decisions are made, and this is a very unique situation in that you've got a conference with 4 schools, another conference has 5 schools in it, and then we have Youngstown State from the horizon. Yeah. It to me, it seemed a practical solution that the conferences, one with 4, with one with 5, would work together to manage the operations of this conference. I think everybody has a stake here. And so knowing Josh, having a chance to spend some time with the 4 presidents in the Summit League, obviously knowing the 5 presidents who make up the Missouri Valley, we started having conversations about this in earnest last fall. And thanks to, I think, a lot of good work on the part of the board, and when I've referred to the board, that is our presidents and chancellors, and Josh's graciousness and willingness to work in this circumstance, I think we've come up with a way that will really enhance the membership, as I mentioned earlier, enhance our student-athlete experience, and create something that I think all 10 institutions, and it's important, it's the number 10, because, again, I'm always sensitive that, Youngstown State, being a member of the Horizon, that we can just have something that everybody can be proud of, that we can build off the great work that Patty Viverito has done, and do everything we can to make the Missouri Valley Football Conference a very special place. For you,
you're already commissioner of a multi-sport league. Did you want this job? Did they come to you? How did that come? Because you already got a full-time job.
Well, one, I'm one of those crazy people who actually love what they do, and so the opportunity to work, especially when you consider the excellence that this league has had for an extended period of time, that would be exciting for everybody. So, this is just an additional labor of passion. And, I was a very, very poor football player at one point in my student athlete career. So it's a sport that I love. It's a sport that I grew up playing. And so having an opportunity to participate in this fashion, that's all good to me.
Jeff, for people that don't know, in your role for the Missouri Valley Conference, did they have any interaction with the Summit League teams prior to this?
In my role as the Missouri Valley Conference commissioner,
just in terms of like working together of those schools, were there any kind of partnership?
There's no alliances between the Summit and Missouri Valley other than this one.
And prior to this, like there was clear delineate, right? The Missouri Valley Football Conference really wasn't working with the Missouri Valley Conference or the Summit League prior to this, correct?
Right. I did not attend meetings. I did not have conversations. Matter of fact, in some ways, we really worked hard to maintain a petition. Now, there are employees in my office who work for the MVFC, and that will continue to be the case. Okay. But, that how Patty managed that situation, we stayed away from, just like how we managed our situation in Missouri Valley Conference. That didn't bleed over into that either.
For this new partnership, I think the first thing people think of, Jeff, is maybe additional schools. How high up on the radar is that now with having the caveat of if you join the Summit League, you can find a football home in the Missouri Valley.
Well, I think the particulars of that are probably, to use a word, personal to the conference. Certainly, the Missouri Valley Conference, we have a great relationship amongst our members and feel very comfortable about our stability and how things we can, how we can move things forward. And I think Josh feels the same way about the summit. But certainly, we see the Missouri Valley Football Conference as a vessel that can enhance both those multi-sport conferences. And certainly, if the opportunity presents itself to take advantage of that, we certainly wouldn't want to be in a position where, the other side of the street precludes somebody from doing something on their side of the street that could be beneficial to that multi-sport conference.
Have you got phone calls already about this saying, hey, we'd like to be part of that?
No, I haven't. I haven't. I think, our situation, and look, there are some differences between the conferences that are never going to change.
Yeah.
The Missouri Valley Conference, and again, that is separate from the Missouri Valley Football Conference. We're very much a basketball centric conference. Okay. And that's not a negative, that's just a fact. Okay. And so when we're having conversations about adding institutions to the Missouri Valley Conference, the first conversation that our board is going to look at, or the first, thing of import is going to be basketball. Okay. That may not be the case in the summit. And so, someone who would have an interest in Missouri Valley, their interest wouldn't be increased or wouldn't wane based on this relationship. Because again, in the Missouri Valley Conference, the first I'll call it obstacle, the first hurdle that you have to jump over is probably one that has more of a conversation about basketball. And this obviously is a football decision.
This partnership also means you're going to hire a chief operating officer. Is that basically going to be the I'll say it, the CEO of everything to make the decisions?
No, I think from the large decision making part, like all conferences function, that is going to be the board. Okay, that's going to be the presidents and the chancellors who are going to make the decisions of import in regards to the MVFC. Beyond that, myself and Josh will collaborate together to make sure that we're advising that group correctly so that they can arrive at the right decision. The COO will be the person who's going to manage and operate the day to day. And we expect that person to have very strong relationships with our athletic directors and our coaches. But in all candor, the athletic directors are the practitioners here. They're the ones that we're looking for that COO to connect with and make sure that we're serving their needs as they operate on their campuses.
You have, as you mentioned, 5 schools that are in the Missouri Valley Football Conference from Illinois State, Indiana State, Northern Iowa, Murray, and Southern Illinois. How much do you pay attention to their football going, knowing full well basketball is your biggest deal? And how much have you paid attention to them on the football field?
A lot, even though it was something that I wasn't participating in conversationally, but those are important things on their campuses. Football is important on those campuses. They want to be successful in football. Certainly, they have the same type of excitement and passion for basketball and the other sports that exist on their campuses. But football is a big piece of what they do. That Saturday tailgate is important to them. What happens on that, between the lines is important to them. So it's something you're mindful of because there's going to be a financial decision made about how they deal with football. There's going to be a social decision made in how they deal with football. There's going to be logistical decisions made in how they deal with football. And that's going to permeate and impact all the other sports on their campus. So to not have knowledge of it, to not be mindful of it would almost be a little bit malpractice because it is going to impact all the decisions made in the athletic department.
What's the first thing that can happen out of that? You take the job July 1. So July 2, if you're not going on vacation, what's topic 1A? What's
I'm not going on vacation. I can guarantee you that.
What's on the desk on July 2nd when you step into the office?
Well, I think the first thing that we're really spending time on, and we spoke about this with our athletic directors last week, is okay, what can we do to better brand and promote the MVFC? And I know we're having conversations about the potential of a media day.
That'd be great.
And I think if we did something like that, it would probably be in the Dakotas. And so those are the type of conversations we're looking to have. But, what you're constantly, I think, going to hear from me is, I always feel, and I feel the same way about my role in the MVC. I'm the facilitator. Okay, we really try and do a great job, and I'm sure Josh will feel the same. We want to make sure that our constituencies, again, board, coaches, athletic directors, we educate them, we inform them as much as we possibly can, and then they tell us what they need and what they deem to be important, and that will really impact and direct the decisions that we make.
I'm all on board in a media day, man. Let's happen. Because it used to happen in St. Louis, in your town. They used to
Mhm.
have one about 15, 16 years ago. I think if there's one thing the league has missed out on is that. I look at the other FCS leagues, Jeff, the Big Sky, the Colonial, the SoCon. They have that to start their season, and it seems odd the Valley has not done that in person for a while.
Yeah, I can't speak to that because, that's one of the things that I haven't been involved with. But again, we're going to take the counsel and advice of our constituencies. And right now, that is something that we're having, some pretty detailed conversations about.
I know I'll get you in trouble here. There's a bunch of Bison fans here that
You
have
won't get me in trouble. You won't get me in trouble.
have longed for a while for North Dakota State or South Dakota State to get into the Missouri Valley Conference for the rest of their sports. You've been around the league forever. Was that ever discussed in that at a point of keeping an eye on the Summit School, the Dakota schools, that when you were looking for additional teams?
No, no, not no. That I think the Summit is a tremendous league. I think those schools have tremendous opportunities born of being in the Summit.
Mm.
And this arrangement is one of an alliance between two conferences to serve what we think is a really important need. And I think that's where my focus is, and I'm sure that's where Josh's focus is.
Can you and Josh then get a basketball scheduling agreement then between the two? Because that would be fun.
I,
Can
I
we do
don't,
that?
I don't, again, I think this is a very limited agreement and focusing on one sport.
Yeah.
And, I think it's important that that's where our time and energy goes. Now, something potentially grows out of that. We'll see where it goes.
Okay.
But those type of conversations weren't part of the things that we've been talking about over the last few months.
I'm not going to take that as a no. Going forward, I know either this year or last year you testified in Washington D.C. on NIL, and I wanted to ask you as a conference commissioner, where are we at, and asking personally, this is my opinion. I don't know about asking Washington to get involved is the best way to go about it. Simply, they have a lot on their table. Where are we at in your mind, and how do we get some guardrails or get something around this? Because it's crazy right now.
Well, and Dom, it's a great question because there's actually two or three stages. The first stage in your fans, because my understanding is your fan base is extremely attentive to the environment that we're existing in. As you know, today, our expectation is that the A4, who's a plaintiff in the House settlement,
Yep.
will be delivering their what I would call their rebuttal to Judge Wilkins regarding the roster management. And so if we're able to get past that hurdle and you have the House settlement, you at least now have a framework, using your term, that you can start having some guardrails and start thinking about some self-governance. The next hurdle to this, which is one of the reasons that I was in DC testifying, and about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was with Charlie Baker in Madison, Wisconsin, with Congressman Jordan and his judiciary group talking about NIL, because we all understand that the current environment that we're in is unsustainable. It's not a healthy
No.
environment. It's not healthy for our student athletes. It's not healthy for our institutions. And again, I think a lot of people have your angst and your uh, uh, somewhat pessimistic uh, outlook regarding the ability to get help when it comes legislatively on this matter. But we actually do, because we do need to be able to do three things. We need to be able, one, to ensure that our student athletes aren't employees, okay, because that's not someplace that any of our institutions want to be. And we have not heard that our student athletes want to be there, but we need to make sure that happens. We need to be able to get to a place where we have preemption, where all of a sudden all 50 states have the same rules.
Mm.
And we need a narrow, whether you want to call it safe harbor or a narrow antitrust, we need to be able to govern ourselves, because I think what we've all become mindful of is that the current environment that we're in is extremely litigious. Okay. Everything that happens, someone's suing, whether it's the state of Tennessee, whether it's the state of West Virginia,
Right.
we always are suing. And so that really diminishes the ability of the NCAA to self govern. And as much as people like to use the NCAA as a pinata, the NCAA is actually us. It's the schools. The
Mm.
schools make rules, but we need to be able to enforce those rules. So starting with the House settlement, hopefully getting some legislative relief, which again puts us in a position where we can self-govern. That is kind of the pathway that we are looking at right now in order to get to a place where we have some sanity in regards to what we have going on, because I think we all understand, and kudos to the fact that we do now have NIL. I think that is
Yeah.
something that
Yes.
has been long
Yeah.
overdue. But I think we would all agree the pendulum has swung too far in the other direction, and we need water to find its level. So hopefully we'll be able to get that done. And all of us as commissioners, all of us are trying to effort to do what we can, which is one of the reasons I ended up in DC, trying to figure out how we can get there in a manageable fashion.
Your league has traditionally got 2 or 3 teams into the NCAA basketball tournament. You a fan of going to 76, expanding it? Because I don't know,
Very much so.
but I don't know
Very much
if you're going to get more teams in. That's the rub. I don't know.
We've done the study metrically, and we know that if the tournament was to expand to 76 teams, we probably have 2 or 3 seasons in the last 7 or 8 where we would have been a multi-big conference. Certainly, Indiana State would have
Yes.
got in 2 years
Yes.
ago. So we're excited about that. Look, there are tremendous challenges when you're not in that A4 in terms of the resources and the finances that you have, in terms of being able to create the type of synergy necessary to be successful in the NCAA tournament. But I saw Drake come in 1 year with an outstanding coach.
Yeah.
And I'm sure their NIL expense for that team did not rival the expense that Missouri had in that first game of the NCAA tournament. And I can tell you, Dom, 6 minutes into the game, I have a good friend in the Big 12, and I'm texting that person, and I'm saying, "Hey, you're done. You got no chance." Okay. And so again, as long as the competition is 5 people walking on the court and having an opportunity to play one time, I'm going to I'll roll the dice that we can find a way to be successful more times than not in that environment.
Couple of minutes left here with Jeff Jackson, the newly elected named Missouri Valley Football Conference commissioner. In your dealings with Ben Jacobson, has he told you how big of a deal he is in North Dakota?
Ben Jacobson is a big deal everywhere. Okay, yeah. And again, I want to say this. You brought up a name that I'm really touched by, and when in my previous life, I was a senior associate commissioner in charge of basketball in the Big 12. I worked for Bob Bowlesby, and a tremendous experience for me. And I remember him having a conversation about Ben. And that conversation wasn't about his exploits or his expertise as a basketball coach. It was about who he was as a person. And everything Bob has told me has been true. Ben is the epitome of what an outstanding basketball coach is. And I consider our conference extremely fortunate to be able to have him represent us, because he just does every single thing the right way. So you brought up a name that kind of warms my heart, because this is an easy profession where people can let's just say can be led astray. And Ben not only talks, but he walks the walk. And so he's a tremendous person for us to have representing the Missouri Valley Conference.
You visited with me off air that you have not made it to South Dakota yet. Well, I'm going to tell you right now.
I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, October 25th, North Dakota State, South Dakota State football. I imagine you're going to be there for that Dakota Marker game.
I just want to know where you're taking me to lunch.
We got a couple spots we can hit.
That's the important thing. Where are we eating?
We can do it. There's a couple spots.
You can't take a trip and not know where you're eating. So no, I'm one of those. I've got 2 states left, so South Dakota is one of them. So I'm getting ready to check that box. But no, I mean, as somebody again, I'm that guy that on Saturday, my wife doesn't have to worry about where I'm at because I'm sitting there watching football games. And so to be able to have a chance to see something like that in person, that's extremely exciting for me. And again, I think it just is, again, another indication of the value and the strength of the MVFC.
Patty was always visible, Jeff. She would go everywhere. Do you have that anticipation? You want to be out there?
I don't think it'll just be me. I think it'll also be Josh. I think it'll be the person we hire as the COO. Again, we want to do the very best job we can of putting this conference, at the forefront of football, not just FCS football period. And I think we have the teams. I think we have the villages. I think we have the board. I think we have the coaching. So yeah, we're going to be all out because we want to make sure that again that student athlete experience is as good as it can possibly be.
This was great. I really appreciate you making time this morning. I look forward to doing this again when we get closer to football season, okay?
I'm just looking to hear where you're going to take me.
We'll make it happen.
Thanks for having time with me today, and I do look forward to having a chance to meet you in person, Dom.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Jeff Jackson is the newly named Missouri Valley Football Conference Commissioner. He'll take over officially on July 1. And I know for a lot of fans that might be in the weeds kind of conversation we just had. Know this. There are more members coming. I think that's a fait accompli. That's going to happen. And he mentioned Media Day. That's a huge deal. We've done this when they've done the video chats. You've seen us. We've taken our show to Sioux Falls the last, Eric, how many? We've been there 2-3 years. How many we've been? I remember. We've been to Sioux. That's a big deal for basketball.
I think 2 years.
Yeah, we've been there the last couple of years. That's a big deal. For football to do that, it would be huge because football is king, especially up here. That'd be a heck of a way to get things started for a new football season. Good stuff there. We're overdue for a break. We'll get caught up. We got a few emails to get to. And Tyler Oak's going to join us here in about 10 minutes' time. Back on Hot Mic on a beautiful Wednesday morning. We roll on right after this.